Hello everybody. I know it's been a while since I've uploaded to this channel. And maybe in a later video I'll explain why I was gone, but today I'd like to talk about something that not many of you know about me, and probably not a lot of people know at all, but as a part to making knives like I do, I also write books. Now, I had a channel where I taught, where I I've put a couple stuff about my books on there, but they really never got anywhere. Um, so I think I might as well, as a first video coming back, post a video about it on here. Now, the book that I've been writing, I'm not an actual author yet. I haven't published anything, but the book that I've been writing, I've kind of been cross on the names. I'm either going to call it the King Wolf series or the Sword on Wolf series, because his name is Sordon. The main character's name is Sordon. What I mean by wolf, the main character is literally a wolf. He's a walking and talking wolf. He's like a werewolf, but he stays a wolf, and he has more of the body of a human. Like, he has hands and feet and arms and legs and opposable thumbs, but it's kind of, he's just covered in fur, and he has the head of a wolf and no tail. So, and then there's other, clan. They live in these clans. His name is Sordon. He was named after the Sordon clan. Um, but it was a clan of wolves. Then you have other clans of different animal species that are the same as him. And anyway, you have a whole bunch of different things. But he is a wolf king, or a prince, I should say. He was the prince of a kingdom, the mightiest wolf kingdom, the Sordon clan, or the Marble Palace, I should say, because it was made out of marble, gold, and solid steel, I believe. And he was the prince along with his brother, his younger brother, Scales, with his father, the king, King Tiron, and his mother, the queen, Queen Eula, of an unknown clan. The Marble Castle was originally built by King Tiron's father, but King Tiron established it. You see, one of the many things that King Tiron did was set a treaty with the human race of peace. So the timeline of the story is pretty much modern times, but he set this treaty and a treaty with a human civilization called the Sentinels. Now, the Sentinels they are human, but they think of themselves not. You see, their original founder, Marcus, he was a billionaire, had the brains to sell this technology that he made, to buy rockets to get him up to space, so that, because his dream was to start a civilization on Mars to separate himself from the human race, because they didn't like the human race. So King Tiron made a treaty with them as well. Not only do they not like the humans, but the humans also don't like them. So when they'd come back down to Earth, they'd be in the comforts of the Sordon abode. And they would trade oxygen for the technology that the Sentinels could create. Because the technology made this, the Sentinels made this technology called microtech. Now, this microtech had the ability to, it just had so much. They commonly used it in armor, and the microtech, if you used it in any way, it would form. It would pretty much. It was just a highly magnetic metal. conducted through brainwaves and micro and magnetic electrical field, you could create anything that you thought of, anything that you wanted. And that's what their armor did. Now the armor would form, and the microtech was so comfortable because of how it formed to the body and how it clung to people's bodies that, you know, it just, with it, there was no better armor that you could ever ask for. But you could also make like weapons, like guns or knives or even swords, at your disposal using the extra microtech compartments that the armor has in itself. So, but we don't see much of that stuff in this book, because this is just a starting book of a 7-book series, or I think proper calculations it would be 7. It's gonna take me a good long while, but this first book I really enjoy it. Anyway, it starts out now. There's another clan, a rival clan. This book, it concentrates between 2 clans, the Victor clan and the Sordon clan. Now, the reason for that is because they are kind of in this holy war, and they're fighting against each other all the time on whose faith is right and whose faith isn't. The clan of Sordon followed a faith of sacrifice and covenant. And the clan of Victor followed a faith of, it was a covenant, but it was a blood covenant. It was a sacrificial blood covenant of one person. His name was Lananai. Now, Lananai, people had a whole bunch of different things they could say about him. Some believed he looked like a lion with mane as thick as the forest floor in the autumn. Some people say he looked like a lamb. Some people say, and specifically the humans, he was a man with the purest of flesh. Now, Queen Eula would always talk to Sordon and Scales about this faith, because she was a follower of it. Now, she wasn't a clan of Victor. She wasn't a clan of Victor, but she was a follower of the faith. Her clan is unknown. King Tiron, though, would always stop her, because he did not want his sons, the future of the kingdom, to grow up into worshippers of a hypocritical faith, because he could not believe in the faith of Lananai because of how the Victors acted. The Victors were incredibly hypocritical. You see, their faith was based out of love and kindness and just overall, goodness to one another. When King Victor of the Victor clan, he named everything after himself. That just shows you how psychotic he is. King Victor disapproved of all of it. He used the clan as his own personal gain. And he didn't... He used the clan as his own personal gain. And the faith, he didn't follow correctly. So King Tiron would not believe a faith that has such a hypocritical people. Now, the Holy War wasn't the big thing, besides the fact that they are just enemies. Now these guys, King Tiron and the Sordon clan, there will always be enemies. So, but the big rivalry doesn't come, the big climax does not come there. It comes when King Tirion, one of King Tirion's own, named Anthuras, betrayed him. Now, the kingdom was ran out of 12 kings because it was so huge. King Tirion being the king of all of them, and then Anthuras being his right-hand man. Anthuras was another king. He was the 11th king. Now, Anthuras, he took sympathy with a entity from a spiritual age. An entity who saw himself higher than the Almighty God. In case, got himself kicked out of heaven. Now, he wanted the same. He wanted the same for himself against Tirion. So, the entity found him one day and captured him. And promised him riches beyond all imagined, and power beyond all imaginable, if he would take out the line of the Sordon clan. So, and the pure line of the Sordon clan. As in Tirion, Eula, Scales, and Sordon. So, when he accepted, this entity gave him immense power. And then, when he gave him this power, he divided the kingdom into quarters and set a mutiny upon King Tirion. And that is where he killed him. King Tirion, he killed both King Tira and Eula in front of Sordon. Mind you, Sordon's only 12 years old when he watched this happen. So, there's a point where Anthuras is going after Sordon now, and Sordon has to fight back. So he grabs his father's sword. Now his father, he believed that God was the only one who had the right to take a life. So he created this place where it's kind of like a realm between dimensions, where his adversaries would go if he was stabbed by a sword, which was laced with the same sort of magic. Now, whoever he were to slice or to hit with his sword, they would be transported automatically to this realm. So, in doing so, he took up his father's sword and he stabbed Anthuras with it without, in a point where Anthuras was just, he was too prideful. He was starting to get too cocky. So he managed to actually stab him with it, and right then and there, he disappeared without a trace. Now, Sordon had the choice. Because of this, Sordon had the ability to go back and take up the throne because they were in desperate need. So emergency powers had to be, made. But he couldn't, he didn't. He did not take the throne. He was afraid. He was only 12. So he left the throne and his brother, and he left the kingdom to one of the generals, pretty much putting into martial law. From there, he left to the woods of southern Texas, and there he was attacked by 2 hunters, and his wounds were so bad he collapsed on the forest floor after getting away from them. And this is when he was about 18 when this happened, so it was a little while after. So, next thing you know, a girl about his age, a wolf girl about his age, finds him. She takes him back to her palace. And there she treats his wounds and nurses him back to health. I'm willing to bet you can guess what happens to those two. Anyway, her name was Angel. She was the daughter of King Victor. And subconsciously, she took the king of the Sordon clan back into their home. See, King Victor didn't know that, though, so he welcomed him in. In fact, he actually grew a liking to him. And he actually encouraged the marriage of him and his daughter. And eventually they got married. But when Victor found out who Sordon was, he banished him. And then they were forced to live out of this little farmhouse in the middle of nowhere. And that is when they had 2 kids, one boy and one girl. The older one was the girl. Her name is Nothorn. She's 15 in this book. And the younger one is a boy. His name is Alexander. He's 10 in the book. And everything was going fine. Until King Victor forced Angel to come back to his palace. He commanded that if she didn't, he would send an attack so vile on them, none of them would survive. So she had no choice. Because he couldn't go back to the Sordon clan for help. Because now he followed the ways of Lananai fully. Because unlike Victor, Angel was a true follower of the faith. And she loved Lananai. And she taught Sordon, on top of everything that he knew from his mother, she taught him how to be a follower of this faith. So he converted, and now he's a follower of this faith, teaching his kids to be followers of their faith as well. So he couldn't go back to the marble castle because they would reject him because he's a deserter of the faith. Not to mention he left them all that time ago. So they couldn't really do anything. She had to leave. Well, the story picks up 5 years after that. Sordon is now 40 years old, living with his daughter and son weren't 15 and 10 by the time their mother left. Nothorn was 10 and Alexander was 5. And when their mother left, they spent, I do believe it was 5 years apart. And now she's 15 and now he's 10. And now Sordon's 40. So, it's been 5 years now. And there's a knock on their farmhouse door. A human named Jack Hunter wants to talk to Sordon Wolf. Well, Sordon eventually lets him in. And Jack Hunter urges Sordon to take back his throne. And when Sordon asks why, Jack talks about something that happened in the Capitol building of Washington, D.C. Because that's where the Marble Castle was located, Washington, D.C. But it was hidden away. And so that no one can find it. But in Washington, D.C., in the Capitol building, a message was pinned on the wall that said, if you do not bring the mighty Sordon Wolf into our custody, the hunt will start. And people could only assume that was Victor because he was the only other wolf to be known still alive. The only other rival wolf clan to the Sordon clan. So, in that moment, Sordon, you know, understands why Jack's urging him for this, because this is when because he knows especially that if they lose faith in one clan, they lose faith in them all. So if they start believing that Victor is bad, then they'll start saying, well, if we need to stop him, if we need to go, drop a couple bombs on him, why don't we just wipe out the whole wolf species in general? After all, the Sauron clan hasn't remained in contact with us, ever since the Sauron clan, they weren't really in much contact with the human beings ever since Sauron left. So they thought, well, let's just drop a couple bombs on them and be rid of it. So, and Jack told him, doing that, annihilating the wolf species, would mean no big sweat to his government because of what his people stood for the human race. They stood for freedom and peace, and that's what King Tiron did. But Sordon, knowing the truth behind King Tiron and his father, he said, my father was a good man, but he was too prideful. He said, me and my brother even needed to call him king. We couldn't call him dad or father. He wouldn't let us. He took his position as king way too seriously. And he didn't, when we made the peace with the human race, the crime went down, yes, but at what point? He said, my father didn't rule out of love and peace. He ruled out of fear and conquest. Not an evil person, but he just believed that was the only way to do it. He believed that was the only way to keep justice alive. Sordon believed differently. And that's when Jack told him, well, that's why you need to tear down the walls, the religious walls that your father built the kingdom up on, and you need to set your own faith in check. You need to make a kingdom not out of anger or fear or whatever. You need to set it on love and peace and proper justice. You need to set it on, good attributes. And Sordon, he thought about this for a little bit, and Jack said, well, whenever you're ready, if you want to take back your throne, just let me know. And he gives him the little, mobile phone. He says, there's only one number on that phone. It's mine. Call me if you're in. And we're going to take back your throne. So, that's all I'm going to go into for now. But I'm really excited to eventually talk to an editor about this and eventually get it published someday. And I figured talking about it right here, right now, is going to be the best way to do that. So, yeah, I really hope you guys, whoever sees this, I don't know, I really hope you could tell me what you think about it. That would be really great. Tell me what you think about the story. I would really appreciate that. I'm going to start posting this channel more regularly. Again, my next video may explain why I was gone so long, but maybe not. I might just keep that to myself for a little bit. But anyway, I thank you for watching. I would like if you let me know about it and what you think, and I appreciate you, and I'll see you next time.